I just like to say I'm 35 years old. I don't wear makeup. Sometimes I look younger than I really am. Sometimes I look older, and sometimes I look ageless. If you know, you know. The whole age verification conspiracy act is coming upon us pretty soon for YouTube in mid-August, so I'm doing this ahead of time. My glasses are off. I know that. I'm 35 years old, born in 1990. Do not come at me, YouTube, like I'm a teenager. I'm not a minor. I've been alive for much longer than I can count sometimes. Sometimes not. Okay? Oh, and one more thing. I grew up in schools without internet. I grew up in schools that used overhead projectors. And I grew up in schools that used Geo Safari units and Apple Lisa 2s. Yeah. I grew up in schools that had IBM PCs mixed in with older Macintosh 2s and just a bunch of mismatched PC computers. Half of them didn't function correctly. This was the 90s, the 2000s. I graduated high school in 2009. Majority of my class was 644 students, over 70% female and 30% male. And 95% of my graduating class was 18 and a half to upper 19 and a half in an urban school district. Majority of my high school was white, but there were some students who were Asian or black or Latino, and mixed races. Lots of foreign exchange students doing foreign exchange student programs from Europe. What's another thing that makes my age? Fisher Price roller skates in the pastel colors. And skippets in the 90s. Hula hoops, jump ropes, sidewalk chalk. Pogo balls. Razor scooters came out when I was 10, 11 years old in 2001. They were $100 back then. And it was Generation 1, where the foot base had those scratchy lines, and the back wheel had that little kick bar on it. Yeah. And before then, scooters were made by Huffy and Magna, and you had to ride them kind of like they were an oddly shaped bike. I hated those things. I think I had one neighbor with one of those, and they were just absolute garbage. They also had handbrakes on them. But the timing of stopping with the handbrakes and putting your foot on the ground was never very easy. Waterbeds were still a thing in the 90s. What's another thing from the 90s? I never had a Power Wheels because my house layout just didn't really give a lot of freedom or opportunity for that. I had bikes. I was an avid bike rider as a kid. I didn't grow up with video games. All my classmates did. But I wasn't the kid playing video games on the weekends. I was the kid who went out riding her bike from like 9 or 10 a.m. until the streetlights turned on. And then my first good bike was a Magna, and my second good bike was a Racine, and my third good bike was a Schwinn 24-inch Ranger. Girls, not the boys. And finally, the last thing that makes me 35, my age, I don't know how to use Canva or Blackboard. I'd rather do school all over again, academics all over again, still on paper, paper and pencil, overhead projector, staples, packets, folders, 5-star, 5-subject notebooks. Educational CD-ROMs known as edutainment. I'm stuck in the past. The Seattle Mariners, to me, my favorite ones were like Ichiro and Dylan Moore and Willie Bloomquist, Ibanez, uh, not Griffey, but after Griffey. You know what I mean? In chapter books and novels that definitely were just full pages of text. None of these kids' chapter books turned into graphic comic book novels. I think that takes away from the value of getting lost in a good book. That's my personal opinion. And the people who turned Junie B. Jones into a graphic novel and reanimated her to look like she has a bean mouth and she gained 60 pounds and she's supposed to be a first or second grader? You take away the walls of text and the pencil sketches just to put in comic book panels. You're taking away descriptive conversations, descriptive language, descriptive paragraphs. Paragraphs that explain the scenery, the colors, adjectives, adverbs. And instead, you're just animating and illustrating all of it with these terrible AI digipen type of illustrations. They're garbage. Bring back original Junie B. Jones chapter books, Amber Brown chapter books. You know, there's a new version of Johnny Tremaine from Scholastic that's just a graphic novel slash comic book with like 120 pages instead of the original chapter book, which was like 250 pages. That's like 130 pages less and probably 20,000 words less because it's just all illustrations and word bubbles like you have in Spider-Man. Yeah. Okay. Bye, y'all. I'm 35 years old. I don't like using electronic things very often besides my phone and my iPad, but I don't like change. I wish things were still 90s and 2000s. Yes, with the phones and the iPad, yes, but I wish things were simpler. I'm 35 years old. Don't tag me as being, oh, you're not old enough to be on YouTube. Yes, I am. YouTube came on the internet when I was 16. 16! Okay, bye.